The man was originally a decorated colonel in the Canadian military. He had repeatedly piloted official aircraft to transport the Prime Minister and the British Queen, yet at night, he turned into an insane devil. In just over a year, he committed 82 burglaries, he stole countless pieces of young women's underwear to wear himself, and his subsequent criminal acts became even more perverted, escalating from theft to brutal rape and murder. Why did such a role model, once featured in news reports, become so perverted and insane? In November 2009, Martha, a girl from Ontario, Canada, was out celebrating her birthday. She chatted and laughed with her friends, completely unaware that her home had been broken into. When Martha returned home late at night, she was shocked to find multiple drawers open. After checking, she found that several sets of sexy underwear, a toy, and a videotape were missing. It seemed that a perverted underwear thief had ransacked Martha's home, but she dared not report it. After all, the stolen items were embarrassing to mention. Of course, she wasn't stupid. She knew her home might no longer be safe, so she hurried to a friend's house to ask for shelter. Before leaving, Martha made sure to lock all the doors and windows. She only left after confirming everything was secure. The next day, Martha wanted to go home to change clothes for work. She searched everywhere for her underwear. There had been several sets left untouched before she left the previous night. Why were there none left this morning? While she was confused, Martha saw a threatening message on her computer. It read, "Go ahead, call the police. I'd love to explain your huge toy to the judge." Martha realized that the culprit had come back after she left, and by the looks of it, he had no intention of letting her go. Embarrassment was better than losing her life. She called the police immediately, and it was lucky that she sought police help in time, otherwise, her fate would surely have been to be left dead in the wilderness. But who exactly was this underwear thief? The truth is shocking. In fact, the man who liked to steal women's underwear was named Russell Williams. He was born on March 7, 1963, in Bromsgrove, Worcestershire, England. His father was quite accomplished, working as a scientist dedicated to nuclear research. Shortly after Williams was born, his father took his wife and child to immigrate to Canada. Later, he became a metallurgist at Canada's renowned Chalk River Laboratories, a leading nuclear research facility, but he divorced before achieving fame. The 6-year-old Williams was awarded to his mother in the divorce. The mother and son depended on each other for life. A few years later, his mother met her true love again. After remarrying, she moved with her son to Toronto, Ontario. The three of them lived a fairly stable life. In 1979, Williams' mother and stepfather had to move to South Korea for work. Considering Williams was still in high school, the couple didn't take him with them. Instead, they arranged for Williams to board at school. Williams inherited his biological father's high intelligence. He had no trouble with his studies. After graduating from high school smoothly, he was successfully admitted to the University of Toronto Scarborough. He majored in economics and political science. During college, Williams had a strong penchant for pranks. Every time he saw his roommate leave, he would deliberately hide somewhere in the dormitory. Sometimes he would wait for several hours, simply to scare his roommate when they came back. He was definitely an odd person, but his roommates got used to it, and were quite tolerant of him. Besides his love for pranks, Williams also had a girlfriend during college, but the relationship ended quickly when he was dumped. Williams was deeply hurt. After that, he would keep his distance whenever he saw women. In 1987, Williams accidentally saw handsome pilots on TV, and was instantly attracted. He also wanted to fly planes, so he immediately applied to join the Canadian military. In fact, Williams was a quick learner. He got his pilot's wings in just 3 years. He then dedicated himself to this career. He worked for many years without any accidents. Later, he even became a top ace pilot in Canada. In his spare time, he also trained new pilots. Later, he joined an Air Force bomber squadron, but he had also reached the age for marriage. A friend introduced him to an outstanding woman, Harriman, the deputy director of the Heart and Stroke Foundation. With the friend's matchmaking, the two got together smoothly, and they married on June 1, 1991. The couple was very affectionate after marriage. Due to work reasons, Williams had to travel to various places. Harriman had no complaints at all. She followed her husband wherever he went. In 1994, Williams successfully joined the Royal Air Force Transport Squadron. With his excellent skills, he was highly regarded by senior officials. He even served as the pilot for the Canadian Prime Minister's trips. Even when the British Queen visited Canada, Williams accompanied her on her official plane as a national representative, so his status was self-evident. In 1999, Williams was promoted to the rank of major. A few years later, he became a lieutenant colonel. To continue his steady promotion, he got a master's degree in defense from the Royal Military College of Canada. Finally, as expected, he was promoted to colonel. For a time, Williams was in the spotlight, and became a role model featured in textbooks. This was a great honor. In 2004, Williams' job assignment changed. He was assigned to Canada's largest Air Force base, CFB Trenton, to serve as the commander of the 437 Transport Squadron. This location was very far from their original home, so Williams and his wife had to buy a new house again. After careful selection, they finally chose a house in Ottawa, Canada's capital, mainly because it was very close to Harriman's workplace. After settling down, the couple continued to live a stable and peaceful life. Williams took his work very seriously, and got along exceptionally well with his lackeys and colleagues. Everyone praised him as an excellent, responsible, and perfect man. The commander of CFB Trenton had an even higher opinion of him. He believed Williams was thoughtful, quick-witted, and calm. He could complete any task efficiently. He even thought Williams would definitely take over as the next base commander, because Williams was truly an outstanding leader, a rarity once in a century. In July 2009, the 46-year-old Williams was promoted to commander of CFB Trenton. This was a height that many Canadian military officers couldn't reach in their whole careers, but Williams, in his prime, achieved it. It was hard to imagine how brilliant his future life would be, but no one could have imagined that such a prominent figure would commit such insane and heinous crimes. The shamelessness and depravity of his acts were outrageous. In fact, after Williams was transferred to work at CFB Trenton, his daily commute to and from work took 6 hours. At that time, they bought a house in Ottawa, mainly to avoid making Harriman travel long distances for work, but Williams couldn't endure the long commute either, so they had to live separately on workdays. Williams bought another small house near the base. He lived there during workweeks. Only on weekends would he take a ride to Ottawa to live with Harriman, and since Harriman was quite busy with work, besides, it was always her husband who traveled to see her, she never went to check on the small house. With his wife not around, Williams began to boldly seek out entertainment. But in fact, as early as 2007, he had already started acting improperly to satisfy his perverted desires. He would go out to find opportunities to break into houses. At that time, Williams went back to his Ottawa home every day. Every now and then, he would sneak into other people's homes, but he didn't steal valuable items. He only liked to take 1 or 2 pieces of women's underwear. Many households met with this situation, but because the stolen items weren't valuable, and considering that the nearby residents were all wealthy or prominent, people thought these residents wouldn't take pleasure in pervertedly collecting intimate items, so everyone didn't take it seriously. They simply thought it was a prank by some kid, but their indifference only made Williams' actions more and more reckless. At first, Williams lived in fear every day. He didn't dare to steal much, nor did he dare to steal too frequently, because he was afraid of losing his wealth and the praise he received. But after a long time, surprisingly, no one reported these thefts to the police, so Williams completely let himself go. He committed 34 burglaries in just 1 year, and he was never caught. The reason he wasn't discovered was his extreme patience. Every time Williams felt the urge to steal underwear, he would wait until dark to act. After carefully breaking into a house where women lived, he would quietly check if anyone was inside. If no one was there, he would rummage through wardrobes to carefully select the underwear he liked. If someone was home, he would hide somewhere and wait quietly. He wouldn't come out until the homeowner woke up and left the house. This was just like how Williams used to scare his roommates in college. Williams thought this secret would never be exposed, but in January 2009, a couple, after discovering their daughter's underwear had been stolen, resolutely decided to call the police, because their daughter was only 15 years old. If she was really being targeted by a pervert, the consequences would be unimaginable. When the police arrived, they conducted a thorough search of the girl's bedroom. To their shock, they found traces of male semen on the bed sheet and desk. Tests confirmed that the traces belonged to an unknown man. This was truly terrifying. After learning about this, the girl no longer dared to sleep alone. She was afraid of being harmed or violated in her sleep. The girl's parents were also very frightened. They carefully protected their daughter wherever she went. The news of an underwear thief in the upscale residential area spread widely locally, but everyone just talked about it as a piece of gossip. After all, this thief didn't steal money or harm anyone's life. There was really no need to live in fear because of this, so people continued to live their lives as usual. No one pressed the police to catch the thief quickly or take further action, and he was overjoyed. Later, when he moved into the new small house alone, his behavior became even more arrogant. He couldn't fall asleep every day without seeing women's underwear, so he sneaked into his neighbors' houses to steal. Relying on his agile skills and the insight gained from years in the military, every operation was carried out neatly. Although he stayed in other people's houses for quite a while, he retreated at a very fast speed. Even if someone accidentally saw him near other people's houses, Williams only left a blurry figure behind. How bold was he? His neighbors' houses were only a few steps away from his small house, yet Williams didn't care at all. He thought the neighbors would never suspect him, so he continued to steal as usual. After stealing, he would carefully inspect the crime scene. He wouldn't leave with peace of mind. Until he was sure he hadn't left any clues, it was precisely because of his caution. Even when someone reported to the police couldn't find any useful clues at all. Not only that, William's identity itself was his protective shield. He was an upright soldier with many years of military service. He could even be said to be the pride of the Canadian Air Force. Who would suspect someone like him? What's more, 2009 was the most glorious year of William's life. Media outlets everywhere vied to report on his deeds. He was almost a household name in Canada, and Williams had a very strong psychological quality. After 2 of his thefts, he was invited to take part in 2 highly anticipated events. Williams went without hesitation. One of them was a strongman challenge where participants pulled an airplane. The other was the opening ceremony of a youth hockey event. At the events, Williams dressed neatly and gave passionate speeches, in the eyes of others. Williams was a well-known positive figure. How could anyone link him to an underwear thief? But the fact that no one suspected him only made him more arrogant. Once, Williams met with the Minister of National Defense during the day. He put on a flawless performance, but as soon as night fell, William's demonic nature could no longer be restrained. He began to have bolder, more evil thoughts, no longer limiting himself to stealing young women's underwear. Under the cover of darkness, Williams snuck into the home of a girl he had targeted, carrying a camera. The girl, who was a light sleeper, woke up and was about to scream when Williams stopped her. Williams persuaded her to obey in a very calm tone. He knew the girl couldn't see his face clearly, so he said, "You don't want to see my face." After speaking, he blindfolded her, then he found something to tie her to a chair. Seeing that she had no strength to resist, Williams tore off her clothes. He took photos to enjoy later, then assaulted her. During this time, the girl, overcome with fear, asked if he would kill her. Williams said it was unnecessary. He then tormented her for over 2 hours before leaving. Satisfied, after he left, the girl was in a state of shock for a long time. She didn't dare to call the police immediately, fearing Williams would return to silence her. When dawn broke, she finally dialed the police, her hands shaking. When the police arrived, they asked if she knew what the culprit looked like. The girl felt that the culprit's voice sounded familiar, but she couldn't tell whose voice it was exactly. It might have been someone living nearby. If there were no clues to arrest anyone before, this time, the situation escalated. The police decided to investigate the girl's neighbors and bring suspicious people back for questioning. Then they arrested William's neighbor, Larry. After bringing him back to the police station, they conducted various tests on Larry. In the end, they concluded that Larry wasn't the real culprit, and Williams knew the police had arrested Larry, but he didn't feel the slightest fear. He thought even if the police investigated every man in the area, they would never suspect him, so he kept looking for new targets everywhere. In November 2009, Williams set his sights on Martha, who lived alone. As mentioned earlier, Martha had called the police for help. After calling the police, she also reminded other female neighbors in the area, telling them to avoid living alone if possible in the near future. If they had no other choice, she advised them to double-check that their doors and windows were properly locked, because a pervert had targeted this neighborhood. But despite all the warnings, a tragedy still happened. On November 24th, Mary, a 38-year-old subordinate of Williams, went back home from a business trip. As soon as she walked in, she first looked for her cats. After counting, she realized one cat was missing, so she hurried to search for it everywhere. When she reached the basement entrance, she found the missing cat through the light of her flashlight, but unexpectedly, there was a person standing next to the cat. Mary clearly saw the person's face and recognized him as her superior, Williams. Before Mary could react, Williams suddenly started an attack on her. After all, Mary was also a soldier. She quickly got into a defensive stance to fend off his fierce attack, but Williams was stronger, and Mary was eventually knocked down. She could only watch helplessly as he assaulted her, unable to do anything. After it was all over, Mary sobbed uncontrollably. She begged Williams to spare her life. She promised never to tell anyone about what had happened that night, but Williams said nothing. He took out a roll of tape with a blank expression, ignoring Mary's struggles. He used the tape to cover her mouth and nose. After a while, Mary died of suffocation. Williams quickly cleaned up the crime scene, then went back to his small house with a smile, feeling pleased. Later, the police discovered the body, but after investigating for a long time, they found no useful clues. When Williams was told about Mary's murder, he acted very grief-stricken. He even wrote a letter to Mary's family to comfort them, telling them to look ahead. "Tell me if you need any help." He promised to do his best to assist. He was truly a hypocrite with a human face but a beast's heart. After this new experience, Williams' crimes became completely out of control. Simple theft and rape could no longer satisfy him. He now enjoyed the thrill of torturing and killing his victims even more. On January 28, 2010, a girl named Jessica had a small gathering with friends. Afterward, she went back to her home near CFB Trenton. She knew there had been a pervert in the area recently, so after washing up and getting into bed, she specifically sent a message to her family to say she had gotten home safely, but the next day, she was reported missing. because Jessica didn't show up for work. Her colleagues kept calling her phone, but no one answered. So the colleagues then contacted Jessica's family. They realized something bad might have happened. Jessica's brother John hurried to her house by car. When he arrived, he knocked on the door but got no answer. John then found the spare key, unlocked the door, and went inside. Inside, he found nothing out of the ordinary. Jessica was gone, but her phone and wallet, items she usually carried with her, were still at home. This was definitely suspicious. John quickly asked the police for help to find the mysteriously missing Jessica. John handed out missing person flyers everywhere. Local TV news also reported on the case. The police were also busy. They organized search teams to look for her in designated areas. They even deployed a helicopter for the search, but after several days of searching, they found nothing. Where could a perfectly fine person have gone? In fact, this disappearance was also Williams' doing. Around 1 a.m., Williams got ready to act. He deliberately parked his car far away from Jessica's house, afraid that parking too close would wake her up and cause extra trouble. He then snuck into her house carefully. Once inside, he found Jessica still asleep. Williams hurried forward and assaulted her, but he didn't feel satisfied this time, so he took her to a desolate field to continue torturing her. Jessica was tortured to death. Williams didn't care at all. He stepped on the gas and drove away from the scene. He thought he had covered his tracks perfectly. Little did he know that, at 3 a.m. on the night of the crime, two men were driving past Jessica's house. They saw a white car parked alone in a field, which seemed very strange, but they didn't have the courage to get out and check, so they drove away quickly. Later, these two men saw the news. They realized that the missing Jessica's home was exactly where they had passed that night. They immediately remembered the white car, so they hurried to provide clues to the police. When the police arrived, they collected important evidence in the field. The temperature was very low at that time, and the ground was frozen, so the footprints and tire tracks left behind were still very clear. Following this clue, the police set up roadblocks on the road. They carefully inspected the wheels of every passing car. On February 4th, Williams drove past. The police said it was just a routine inspection. After keeping the situation under control, the police were shocked to find that he was the person they were looking for, but to avoid alerting him, they let Williams go first. Afterward, the police sent people to secretly collect evidence and found that the footprints were also left by Williams. Moreover, a thorough investigation revealed that Williams often traveled back and forth between Ottawa and Trenton. Wherever he went, crimes would occur. Sometimes they were underwear thefts, and sometimes they were murders or rapes. In any case, everything matched. On February 7, 2010, the police still didn't reveal everything immediately. Instead, they invited Williams to the police station. On the grounds of assisting with an investigation, Williams was confident that he had never revealed any flaws, so he walked into the interrogation room with a smile. He even chewed his favorite gum casually when facing the camera. Considering Williams' special identity, the person conducting the questioning was the police chief. At first, he chatted with Williams with a smile. After Williams completely relaxed, treating the police station like his own home, the chief finally presented the evidence they had found. Faced with irrefutable evidence, Williams immediately stopped smiling, stared at the evidence, and fell into silence. A few hours later, Williams admitted to doing everything. He then led the police to the place where he had killed Jessica. The police took the body back with heavy hearts. In fact, after Jessica went missing, Williams had actively invited his neighbor Larry to go hunting. The hunting spot was exactly where Jessica's body was dumped. Luckily, Larry didn't go, otherwise, he would definitely have been framed for Williams' crime. Then the police continued to investigate Williams. They never expected their worldview to be severely shaken, because from September 2007 to November 2009, Williams had committed a total of 82 burglaries. He stole many pieces of underwear from young women, and even didn't spare children's underwear. Every time he stole intimate clothing from minors, Williams would even fantasize and masturbate. It was obvious that he had a severe case of pedophilia. When Williams successfully stole women's intimate clothing, he would take it home and arrange it neatly. He would also carefully label each piece with a number underneath. The police searched his two residences and found the stolen underwear and videotapes. At this point, some people might ask, did Williams just keep the stolen underwear at home to look at? Of course not. He not only did perverted things with them, but also put them on and posed for photos. He took thousands of photos in total. Every photo showed him striking provocative poses, which were very disgusting. Later, Williams was brought to court. Faced with conclusive evidence, he admitted to all crimes, but he never explained his motive for the crimes. In the end, Williams was sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences, without the possibility of parole for 25 years. Later, this incident spread throughout Canada. He was once the pride of the Air Force, but now he brought great shame to it. The commander of CFB Trenton immediately retracted his previous praise, and even criticized Williams as a villain. The Canadian military, having failed to recognize Williams' true nature, also felt humiliated and quickly cut off all ties with him. They revoked his position as commander, and stripped him of all his military ranks. His uniform, medals, and honorary profiles were all destroyed. They even scrapped the cars that Williams had driven. They didn't want to have anything to do with such a scumbag anymore. Harriman's situation wasn't much better. Citizens all accused her. Feeling very wronged, she immediately divorced Williams to cut off all ties with him. Later, Williams was sent to Kingston Penitentiary in Ontario. At first, he seemed defiant and refused to eat, but no one cared whether he ate or not. When he saw that no one was paying attention to him, Williams got so hungry that he ended up eating more than anyone else. After eating, he tried to find a way to end his own life. He tried to swallow toilet paper, but in the end, he still survived. Later, Williams was transferred to a higher security prison, Port Cartier Institution in Quebec. He fully deserved this fate. Analyzing Williams' criminal psychology, first, he had abnormal sexual fetishes. This was likely related to his oppressive work environment. Second, he most likely had dissociative identity disorder. On the surface, he seemed very outstanding, but behind the scenes, he lacked morality, had a distorted mentality, and committed countless despicable and abhorrent acts. This story tells us that sometimes we can't view issues through stereotypes. Being near a military base doesn't mean there's no danger. Beneath the glamorous image of a senior official, they might just be a pervert. If you like my channel, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe.